Okay. So now we go to Gen file. And this is the window you would see. And then we go to the capture now step to capture some images. We set up the objective we want to use, so maybe we want to use the 4x objective, or maybe we want to use the 96 well plate. And then, as I said, this is an Agilent plate, so we can select the Agilent plate for now. And then if the plate is already not loaded, then you can also click on carrier out, which is essentially like pressing that button. And then let me just start off with this plate actually. This is a plate from 2023, as you can see, so it cannot start from the date. So it's, because this is an old plate, the foil is going to take care of the longevity of this. Yeah.
So you can use the bright.
Bright field?
Bright field.
Yeah, I mean you can take the foil away and then,
Okay.
put it back afterwards.
Yeah, it's good to know if you keep the lid on, as a plate, if you write on top of the plate, it might be an issue.
Yeah, you're not gonna see very clear in this.
Okay.
And then you can unselect or deselect or select this option to use the lid on them. I always recommend using the lids unless you don't have to, unless you have to remove lid for some calcium flux acid, right? You would have to take the lid off, but otherwise you can keep it on. Alright, and then click OK. And as you click OK, it's gonna load up the plate for you and start up the reminder mode. Is it okay if I take a seat?
Sure.
It's easier for me that way. Okay. Alright. And then
What type of cells are these?
these are fibroblast cells, and the DAPI is for nuclei. There's also GFP, that's basically just GFP expressing cells. And it was supposed to have the Texas Reds, but it's gone, or the Reds are gone because of its void. But yeah, we have the GFP still intact in it. So now if you want to switch around to maybe a different well, you would click on this well which says A1 right now. And then you would basically jump to anywhere you want to go. So maybe we can go to maybe B3 for now. I can click OK. And then you can see there are some cells, but they don't really look in focus to me at the moment. So my go-to guide for that is always hit auto expose and then click on autofocus after the auto expose. So that's going to take care of the exposure and then it will focus. So that's easier for the software to work like that. And then if that still doesn't work quite good, then you can just redo it. It looks pretty much the same, right? Because it's a very old plate. This is just like a demo plate to test out, the functions of the imaging. It's not really to image or sample. It's just to show you the functionality of it. So maybe we can jump here and just click auto expose and then auto focus. And it improved it slightly. And you can also look at the Z height, which is here. So it's like 3397. So if you were maybe here or something, and then if you hit auto expose and auto focus, then it works. I mean, then you see the difference. It was already good to begin with, so it didn't make a huge difference. And then once you hit autofocus, always just try to expose it one more time, because you don't know exactly what the exposures are until you are at that focus point. So you set it one more time.
Oh,
so always 2 cycles of auto expose and autofocus, and then more if you have to afterwards. Right? If you want to capture this image, you would click on this capture button on the bottom left of your screen, which is right there.
Oh, okay.
And then capture this image. If you want to move around, you can use this left and right arrows. Or you can also just click anywhere within the well.
Okay.
Or you can also just click and drag. So there are multiple ways of doing the same thing, essentially, to go to the spot you want to go to.
I'll try
to click this and I'll end up clicking the bottom and I'll ruin my whole thing and have to restart
What's that?
my camera. The arrows are so close to the circles sometimes
Oh yeah,
that I
for sure.
ruin my
Yeah.
whole thing pretty frequently.
Okay.
And
It also changes depending on the objective you have, right? So if you have the 20x of, let me just show you what I mean.
So
So
these
this-
are static images.
We are getting it live view right now. So this is a live view of your sample. We have not collected
Okay, so
it.
if actually cells are moving,
Yeah,
You
You're
would
gonna
see
see
it.
it.
You would see
Okay.
it there.
There's something that me and Chase flashed run off the side of this,
Mhm.
which was weird.
Yeah. So now we are at 20x, and you can see the exposure is high. So again, like click on auto expose and autofocus. So what the point I was trying to make is, now that square is gonna be significantly smaller because this is just the FOV you are in.
Yeah, that doesn't help me. It's that I want to click this arrow and I click that circle and then my square goes into the wrong place and I have to restart my account.
Maybe you can just use, like drag it
I
like
could
this.
drag it. Well, then I'd lose my left and rights. I'm trying to count.
You can also get a joystick. You offer a joystick for someone like you. But
I wish the
unfortunately, that's.
keyboard would work. I want to be able to click down. That's
can-
what I want to
I
do.
can pass that suggestion. I
Yeah,
can
no,
pass
that would help a
suggestion.
lot.
Sure.
I would never mess up if I can
Okay.
just click.
Let me write it down for
The
you.
other problem I have
Yeah.
is that when you click the down button,
Yeah.
it doesn't go the same distance every time.
Is it?
Yeah, it tends like this one.
Yep.
You can see
1483, and it's like 10, 13, 10.
it
Let me
goes,
see.
sometimes it's like double the distance.
I can actually.
It's like very different.
Okay, we can test it right now. I don't think it's supposed to be like that, so if that's the thing happening, then I can report it. 1137. So it's moving by 173 microns right now. 965. Yeah, so it's actually doing the same thing. So I think what you're referring to is the stage movement. So if you go here, you can
Well,
actually
have this-
customize
Yeah,
this.
no, I put it to what I want it to be, and it has kind of an average that it does. But I'll have the stage movement. I change it all the time, and I'll go like down, and I'll be like, oh, what cell was that? And I go to go up, and it goes twice as far.
Okay.
Like it doesn't do. It has one that it tries to do every time, but
Okay.
sometimes it goes half or double the distance.
If that happens with this version, let me know. Because
Alright,
I'll
yeah.
report it.
Yeah.
So we just upgraded your software yesterday
Yeah.
from 3.10 to 15.
Let you know.
So this has a lot of bug fixes. Like literally that's, the old one was reporting back to biotech folder, now it's Agile. So it's very, very different. There are a lot of improvements. So if that still happens, let me know.
All right.
Please.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for the feedback. Great. So let's just stick to 20x. It looks okay for now. So I'm gonna auto expose and autofocus wherever I'm at to focus on. Right. We are at like 0.33 millimeters thickness. So it's not gonna be exactly perfect, which is expected because the correction color is slightly off, but that's okay. If you want to collect this image, as I was saying, you would click on the bottom left of your screen, and that's the capture icon. For some reason, you have debris, and that's like autofluorescing, and it's messing up the auto exposure. The exposure is not being set properly by automatic fashion. What you can also do is just click on the exposure tab right here, and then you can reset your exposure from this tab. So the first one is the intensity of LED. It always stays at 10. You don't really need to change that. The last two is something you can change. The second one is the exposure time or the integration time, and then the third one is the camera gain. So if you use your smartphone, and you take a picture at night, it's gonna ask you to keep the phone static in like one location for 3 seconds, 4 seconds. So that 3-4 seconds is basically the exposure time. So you're exposing your images for now at 5 milliseconds. So if your fluorophores are not bright, you might need to increase that depending on how much expression you have. And the gain is basically just multiplying all the pixels. So the higher gain is gonna give you higher exposure, but it's also gonna give you higher noise. So if you want to just do something fast, then you can increase the gain. It doesn't really matter. But if you want like highest quality images, publication quality images, you can decrease the gain and increase the exposure time if needed. All right. But most of the time, 99% of the time, I would say, like the auto exposure should just work perfectly. In case you again had some debris and the focus is not working properly, this is the coarse focus option, and this is the fine focus option. So this is the focal height at which we are at right now. So it's like 3403, I think. So if you use coarse focus, you can see it going down, right? And then if you click on the other side of it, it's gonna go up. So it's pretty easy for you to change
I
manually.
have a question.
Yeah.
About the exposure time, right? If those are live images, what we're seeing, what happening right now in the WoW, how the exposure time is going to change?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So when you actually auto expose it, it's just trying to briefly determine like what's the exact timing for that, and based off this, so if I now capture this image, this image will be captured at 5 millisecond interval. So this image will be exposed for 5. So whatever you capture is just going to be here, and this is just live. So this is like constant illumination of your sample.
If you were to switch the well, would it keep the same exposure?
Yeah, it would retain everything the same. You would see the focus is the same, like the Z height is the same, but the focus is not.
Yeah.
Because these plates are really good, but they still have their imperfections because they are not like $1,000 plates, right? So you can do so much with it, but it's not going to be perfect. So it's still going to need to autofocus each and every time it goes to everywhere. So that's why again, like the laser autofocus is a very good option, because when you autofocus it like this, like the software-based autofocus, what it is doing is taking like multiple images across different Z heights, and at each time it's going to expose your sample with light. And if your sample is already like experiencing photo bleaching, it's gonna fade faster. So the laser autofocus, because it just focuses on the bottom of the plate, it uses laser infrared light, so it's not really in the visual spectrum of light, so it's not phototoxic to the cells. And then it just sets up an offset from the bottom of the well plate, how far off are the cells. And that distance is going to be static across the whole plate. So the bottom distance is the only thing that's going to change. The location where the cells are going to sit in, irrespectively, if this distance is like 3405 or 3455. The bottom thickness is the one that's the variable. Like the cells where they sit is going to be constant. So imagine like this is your A1 well, like this is the thickness of it. If you go to A2, it's going to be slightly up or down, but the distance from where your cells are to the bottom is going to be standard across the whole. So that's what the laser autofocus is going to do. It's just going to make it more efficient. All right. So once let's just go back to maybe this one. I want to go to a well which has some cells in there. All right. So now we are at B4. We want to capture this image. We just capture this image like this. And then if you want to change the channel, this is where you would change that. So now you can change to GFP. And it's an old sample, so you can see a lot of background fluorescence, right? And then you can autofocus if you want to. I think it's going to autofocus on this blob of cells that is on the bottom right.
What question you had in terms of exposure?
Yeah.
Like, say like a typical camera, you can correct the auto exposure to like up it just a bit from its predetermined auto exposure level. Can you do that here too?
Yeah. So if you, for example, let's just take an image for now. So if I auto expose it like this, right, and then this is the predetermined level, you can bump up the gain.
Yeah,
you can
but
also
I guess
bump up.
like I'm thinking like in a plane-based assay, if you want to auto expose every single well, but then can you like increase the exposure just a little bit from that?
I see what you
exposure
mean.
level?
Yeah, I see what you mean. So, for that, I looked at your protocol also, so I just have very small feedback about that. We don't really necessarily want to auto expose it in, more than maybe like 3-4 wells in the whole 96 well. So what you want to focus on is, like your positive control, maybe your negative control, and then just look at the exposure levels and just set those wells for the auto exposure determination. Because otherwise it's going to go to each and every one of them and then reset the auto exposure, then take a mean of that. It's going to take up a lot of time.
So the other question, so it takes a mean of all your auto
Yeah.
exposure levels?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we don't want to spend much time just waiting for the auto exposure.
Got it. Okay.
I always encourage you guys to use the manual exposure if you can. And I can also show you when we get to the experiment stage, like how easy is that.
I mean, I guess taking an average is good to know
Yeah.
because I did set a manual exposure before, and the results were a lot more variable
Okay.
than I did when I did my method. But
Yeah.
like you said, just taking an average anyways. I assumed it was looking at one well, autocoding from there and applying that only to that one well, as opposed to taking an average of the
Makes
10
sense. No, it's going to use the same exposure for the whole plate
Got it.
because of like high throughput screen.
Yeah,
and
okay.
stuff like
That makes sense.
that. Yeah. So yeah, that's a great point. And then I don't know if we moved or not. Let me just try to
But I
autofocus.
guess going back to the initial
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
is there a way to do that?
No.
Okay.
In the experiment mode, no. Yeah. In the manual mode, yeah.
As you know, through each channel, do we have to auto expose and autofocus every time?
Yeah, so for the first time, yes, you would have to, and then it will be set. So, once you set up the exposure, you don't really need to change that afterwards for each of the channels. Yeah. So let's just go to maybe B4, and we're gonna now set up the whole acquisition for that. So we want to now create an overlay image of, I want to see something with has a lot of cells in it, maybe this one. So now we're going to create an overlay of my DAPI and GFP. So even though the cells are looking out of focus, because we set up the exposure already, I don't need to reset it. Now I can just click on capture button. This is captured. Now we can go to GFP, and we can still auto expose it. I think that's a little bit overexposed, right? And then you can also click on autofocus, and then you can capture this image.
So what I got is that after you do autofocus, you do auto exposure again.
Yeah, one more time. Yeah. So auto expose, auto focus, and once that is in focus, then one more cycle. So whenever from the point it is perfectly in focus, you just do one more cycle of the same. Yeah. And you can imagine, you can use like the same Z height of each FOVs or field of views for like different channels, but it's not really the case for high magnification images. So what I mean by that is if you have your nuclei and your mitochondria, those could be at different heights, right? So we always want to auto focus on each of the channels. And once we do that here, it's going to remember those settings. And it's going to just input that offsets automatically when we go to the experiment. Is that clear so far? Yeah? Alright. So we have collected these overlay images. Is it okay if we go to the next step? Yeah, alright. So now we can go to the process and analyze function. And here we can see all the images that we acquired so far. So this is the 4x image, 20x images, and this is the overlay that we just captured.
Oh, so it does automatically do
It automatically does that for you. Yeah.
The kinetic stuff is right before.
Yeah, so kinetic stuff is a part of this, and we're gonna go through that in like maybe 10 minutes. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great question. Hey, Dana, how are you?
Hey, Sohan, how are you?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming.
Of course, pleasure. And then you can click on this save icon that looks like a floppy disk. I don't know if you guys know what floppy disk is, but you can then save it here. You can name it. It's gonna by default use the date and time of the system that you have, or the computer. Alright, so now we have this overlay images. As I was saying, we have a lot of background noise, right, in the GFP channel. So one way to visualize that is by this line profile tool. So if you click on this line profile tool and draw a line across this one cell, maybe, we can see this is the peak. So this is the like signal intensity of this cell. But we also have a lot of background noise, like 5,000 RFUs of background noise right here. So there's also a pre-processing tool, which is basically a background subtraction tool. And then you just click on OK. And now if you look at the GFP again, now the background noise is 1000 or 1100 and the peak is 20,000. So now the signal to noise ratio, right? So that's what we use in quantifying or quantitative purposes. The signal to noise ratio is all that matters. Now it's 20-fold. Before that, it was 5-fold. So we have like 400% improvement or of basically the image quality, or at least the usable images for the data collection, right?
So how would you define the line profile tool? Is it just the way you can take two data points, run across to see what the signal is, and that helps you determine
Yeah,
the signal and background? Okay.
That's a great question. So wherever you draw this line, it's basically giving you the line of each of the pixels that are a part of that. So it displays the line as the line length. So this is the length of this line profile tool. And this is basically the background noise, the signal, or whatever that signal is. So if you just want to see or visualize the profile of one of the cells, which I find easiest, you just draw a line across one of the cells, and that just gives you easy display of what's happening. One of my colleagues also likes to use this, and this is also pretty good because it gives you a peek of like all of the cells that are part of this. So multiple ways of visualizing the same thing. All right. So now we have done some data collection over the images. We have processed or background subtracted this image. Now we can do some data analysis. So this is the capture step which we first did, then the process step, and then the analyze. So it's all part of the same toolbox. Now we have two options. One is image statistics and one is cell analysis. Are you going to be doing any like proliferation or confluence-based assays sometime near?
In the we have in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. So, image statistics is a great way of just visualizing that very quickly. So it's just going to give you like image level results. It's not going to display like cell level results. It's not going to tell you like how big this cell is versus this cell. But it's still going to give you like image-based image level results such as like confluence or like the total intensity and stuff like that. So if I just click on GFP, and actually let me ask you guys, which channel would I use? So my nuclei is blue, which is DAPI, and my GFP is basically detecting the whole cell, including the nuclear region as well as the cytoplasmic region. So which of the channels should we use for confluence analysis?
Maybe the nuclei?
For the confluence, which of the channels should we use to just get like the confluence results? The DAPI or the GFP?
DAPI.
Okay. So the DAPI is great because it gives you the nuclei region, but it's not really confined to the cell boundaries, right?
Okay.
So this is how your cell would look in bright field. If you just look at it in bright field without any labels, this is the whole cell boundary around it.
Okay.
So we always want to use that, which basically displays the whole cell. So it's also very common to say DAPI, like 50% of the times people say DAPI. So don't mind that at all.
That'd be good for the cell count.
Yeah, we can use the
Oh,
DAPI for
okay.
cell counts. If you're looking for cell count, this is gonna give you wonky results, right? Because it doesn't really distinguish between the cell boundaries there. So we're gonna use that for the cell counts. Yeah.
Could I ask you a question? Just Chase, we do have a space for you at the end, team space. Apparently, it's going to happen at lunch or something.
After.
Yeah, and then we've got a projector set up for you, and if you want to do anything online, it's just to let you know about scheduling. I was late, I got delayed for some other reasons. But then, if you have any questions for me, this is mainly for you guys and learning from so on, but if you have anything for me, I'll just give them. All right.
Thank you so much.
So now we can see all the image level results here, right? So we have the mean intensity, which is 2700. We have the maximum intensity. So one of the peaks is actually, one of the peaks here is like 60,000 RFUs in fluorescence. There's this total intensity. So it gives you pretty good readouts if you are just seeking the results for the image level results. One way you can also resolve that is now we know like the background noise, right? So if I draw a line profile tool again, like this, now I know my background is about 1,800, which actually just states it right here, right? It's 1,800 or something like that, which is your background noise, and everything that is a peak is yourself, right? So now if we go to options, and you just set up your lower value threshold. So now we know our background is about 1,800, right? And I can just click on OK, and then if I view my outliers, everything that is green is now basically getting confined with the results, and everything else that is white is not a part of the data set. So now these results are going to change based off what we see in the image. So now the mean intensity has improved because it's not using this dead space for the counting. And also you can visualize the confluence value, which is 37% right here. The confluence is right there. So this is a very simplified way of visualizing like image level results. But this is typically not something you would use for object level results or like microglia morphology analyses. We are not probably going to use this at all. Just something for you guys to know. All right. And once you are ready with the setup, then you just click on Add Step, which is again on the bottom left, and this is going to add this step to the workflow. So now you can see it on the right. All the readouts are being displayed right there. Any questions about the image statistics or image level results?
What's you said the add step? I didn't get the last part you did.
Yeah, so once you add this step, you remember this is the whole process of capture, process, and analyze, and we're going to try to automate that for the whole plate. So this is
So we're
now a
just
part of your protocol. So we are still setting up the protocol.
Okay.
And this step is a part of your protocol so far.
Okay.
So if you want to add some more steps, you can. Or if you just want to create an experiment, you can at this point.
Okay. So we're setting up a protocol for ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And then, great question. And then we also can go to the cell analysis for the cellular analysis features. And here we're going to use the DAPI. Because the cell counts are like the easiest to find if we have a DAPI signal. So if you just hit start, it's gonna do a pretty decent job of finding your nuclei. You also would see some aggregates like this. That's kind of like 2, but being recognized as 1. So there's some room of improvement, right? For improvement here. So how do we gauge that? How do we differentiate that? So again, this line profile tool is going to come in handy because to our eyes, we can actually see that there are like 3 different nuclei right here. The software thinks it's only 1, right? So how do you tell the software like what to use? You use your line profile tool and just draw it across these 2 cells, right? And now we can see that this is the peak. So the intensity is already peaking out. So we did a little bad job in terms of setting up the auto exposing part. So now this is like completely exposed. But you can also see the 25% number between the background and the signal. So this is the peak intensity of the signal profile of these 2 cells. This is the background noise, which is 1800, and the 25% number is something you can use for threshold to separate between the background and the signal. So now let's just try that. This is like about 15,000 RFUs. So if I try typing 15,000, and I'm going to show that to you exactly where that's located. And now we are at least splitting this 1 into 2 cells, right? It's not directly splitting it apart into 3, but we are kind of going there slowly.
Can I ask a question? Why don't you just set up this number where you actually have difference in 2 peaks?
Great question. So, if you look at this one, this has peak of intensity of 65,000 or close to that. If you maybe look at this one, now this is 49,000. So if you set your background or threshold to 50,000, you're not going to count them. You're only going to count the ones that are very, very intense. So you want to be cognizant of everything that's happening in this well, but also for the whole well thing. Right?
Okay.
And you can only do that if you just look at the averages. So that's why this 25% number is very helpful for you. Because if you type that in, it's going to basically compensate for the most part of this image. And once you collect the whole plate images, you can always go back and change it. So if you see that there are some wells that have some issues, you can always reset your threshold accordingly.
Please explain again what the 25%,
Yeah.
what does it indicate?
Yeah, so this is the background noise of this image, right? So if you just look at the signal intensity, I'm sorry, I'm touching your screen. If you see the signal intensity here, that's 1300.
Yeah.
Most likely this cell has an intensity of 49,000. So the software is automatically determining like what is going to be an ideal threshold for you to use. That's in between these numbers, and that's that value. So you just use that for the determination. And if you do the math, it's going to be close to 25% of this difference. Yeah. So far so good. All
Or
right.
actually, wait, sorry, the percent, can you explain one more time? what that means?
Yeah, exactly. So if I draw a line profile here, right? So this peak is about 23,500, and my background is like 850.
Oh, it's just saying 25%.
And if I do a 25% number, I didn't write it correctly. So 23,500, and then 854, and then I divide it by 1/4. What am I doing different? Come on. Sorry.
But basically, it's saying y-axis is 25% of the background to the peak.
Exactly.
Does it recommend? Are you saying you recommend setting a threshold at that 25%?
Yeah,
mark?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you set your threshold at 25%. So, I mean, if I do my math between these 2 numbers, you subtract it and then you just take it once.
Yeah,
It's going
so
to be
it's
close to
really
this
practice.
value.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, now for that cell, it's kind of 5,000. So if I use 5,000, what it's going to do is it's going to start off from a very low threshold, right? And then now we have this clumping issue where we are determining like these cells to be 1. Can I use your notepad just for a second?
Sure.
Okay. So what we use is kind of a watershed algorithm. Just to go into a little bit more detail about that. So imagine, this was your 5,000 threshold. So now if you're just sitting on the bottom and looking at the mountain peak from the water level, you're not gonna see like 2 peaks because your water level is like at 5,000. That's your threshold boundary. If you set it to where we set it, like 10,000 or 12,000, now you are basically distinguishing between these two peaks because of the water level. It's going up, right? So if it's too far down, you're probably gonna count these cells, but as one. If you are too close up like this, then you're also miscalculating because the whole peak is not being a part of that, and there are also gonna be some nuclei like this, right, that you're missing out on. Makes sense? So this is, this exact example, if you look at the profile of this cell, it's 15,000 RFUs versus this one is 39,000 RFUs. So if you set your threshold to be like, above 20,000, you're gonna miss everything that is below 20,000.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Got it.
It's an average of all.
Yeah. So we have to be cognizant about everything that's happening in the image. And again, you can just draw a line like this. Use the 25% number from there, and it's going to be a perfect starting point. And then, in case you need to optimize something else, then you can. But in most cases, you don't. Clear so far? Yeah. Lot of things, right, to capture in the first training. So that's awesome. All right. So if you go back to the options tab, that's the threshold that we had used. So I'm gonna start up with the 11,000 threshold. The next thing you can look at is the size. So for sure, like this fibroblast cells are not going to have nuclei of like 100 microns. We know that for sure, right? So how can you determine like the lowest point and the highest point? You can also just look at the average size here, which is like 17 microns.
Okay.
The average size is right there. And just from experience also you would know like, what would be like a good starting point, right? So I just, looking at this, I just double that number approximately, and I just use a 40 micron threshold. So now if I have like a huge debris of like 100 microns, it's not going to count that as nucleus. So that's good. All right. And the third thing is the advanced options, which will help you differentiate between, like one of like these clusters. Hopefully, it may not work perfectly here, but it would work like in some other areas. So this is a rolling ball diameter, and it's defaulted to like 120 microns. So if you again just go to advanced options, look at the average size. So the average size is about 20 microns, right? It's 17.6.
Yeah.
So I can just type in 20 microns and click apply. And now you can see it's basically distinguishing between this, and this, and also here. So before that, if I just set it auto, just pay attention, it's just like, one blob. And we set it, we train the software, hey, this is gonna be about close to 20 microns. Now it's going to try to split between those. And how it does that, just imagine you are like rolling a ball across the whole image. So this ball size or like the box size is the size we are defining here. So if you define the box to be too big, so this is your cell, you're defining it to be too big, there are like, it's basically looking for a signal and background. So if the cell is,
Oh, sorry.
I broke your pen.
No, I was already updated there. Don't worry.
We owe you a new pen.
No.
So you see the difference. Now it knows where the signal is
Yeah.
and the background is, and it's going to do a much better job. So it knows like what cell size to look for, and it's going to try to split between them.
Okay, but why we don't just select the object size here?
We
like
can.
instead
Oh,
of 40,
the-
we just put 20.
The maximum size,
Yeah.
that's a great point. So because your nuclei is also going to change depending on the drug you're treated with, the growth stage of your cells. So you think that the average size is 17, but let's set it up. Everything else is more than 17 microns.
Okay.
So this is just an average estimate of average quantification of what exists. So that's why you just always double it at least, and then increase it if you need it. Yeah. And similarly, if your minimum size is set to 15, you're gonna miss out on the small cells that are there. Right? So typically, like dead cells would be smaller, like in nature compared to the live ones. Yeah. So this is how we would set it up. Any questions about segmentation of nuclei so far? No? All right, perfect. So now if you pay attention on the right side, we see all the image level results here. So it has the cell count, the average size, the average area, the total sum area, the intensity, the mean intensity, and everything else. If you click on any of these objects, it's going to also populate those values here on object level details. So you have,
Single cell value.
yeah, you actually get cell by cell level information, which is very helpful. And then there's also this scatter plot tool.
Yeah, consider it. They're right next to me. I saw someone do. We only have
Oh.
There's also this scatter plot tool, which actually gives you like a flow cytometry sort of chart. And then based off this, if you wanted to segment the cells, like on the rightmost region, you think those are like more than, 20 microns in size, and you want to segment them or like calculate them differently, you can also set up a subpopulation like this. So now it's going to take up all the criteria that we set right now and click OK. And now that population is about 34% of your cells. So if you go back and if you go to the all objects button, you have the subpopulation that are like larger cells. You can also fill objects, and now it's like very distinctly different.
So when you select a population like that, you will then highlight them here.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I guess you do this stuff manually.
I know.
Gosh.
Me too. I spent like weeks for like one of the experiments for one of my papers, and I had to repeat that 3 times because we have to do triplicates. So I spent like 3 weeks for like one experiment. It was crazy.
So how did you subdivide it?
Yeah. So if you go to this scatter plot tool, now you can create histograms or scatter plots from here. So we did like scatter plot, and we just use size, and then y-axis area. You can also get like mean and standard deviation if you're interested, and now it will give you like all these indicators. So it's pretty cool actually. It's very helpful. You know the mean, you know the 2 standard deviations above and below. So if something is abnormal, you can easily like filter it out, and then you just draw a box around it and say new population, and you just mark it up, and it's gonna give that to you. Because we are almost close to 12 p.m. I'm gonna be a little bit fast, but we can always tackle all the questions right now. So I mean, feel free to ask questions as they come up. I'm gonna be just a little bit fast because we also want to go to Chase's plate next before we start for lunch.
Yes.
What time do you guys typically take your lunch at?
Whatever the experiment
time.
allows us.
Let's shoot for like 12:45 if we can, and then go from
There's a
there.
cafe across the street that closes at 2.
Scrubs Cafe?
Anytime before
Anytime
2.
before 2.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
we definitely do. Yeah. Yep. Perfect. So if I go back to the options, right? Now we see the same features we saw. The one is threshold, the second is the minimum maximum size, and the third one where we input the cell size information. Now we go to the secondary mask. So now if we want to now get the GFP level information, so let me just uncheck the highlight objects. Now we want to also distinguish the GFP population. The first option which says measure within the primary mask. So what is the primary mask? The primary mask is what we set up for the nuclei. So whatever we see, the highlighted regions, this is a primary mask. So it's going to give you the GFP indicators or GFP values all within this confined yellow or pink regions. But GFP, we know it's not just nuclear, it's actually nuclear plus cytoplasmic, right? So we can also go to the secondary mask option. The first option that looks like a donut, it assumes that your signal is only outside the nuclei. So if you don't have any nuclei signal in nuclei, then you select this option. If you have the signal both in nuclei as well as outside, we select this. So that's what we have right now. So we're going to select that. And then you can also expand the mask. So how far off do you want to go from the primary mask selection and stretch it to the secondary mask? So let's just do that for now, 50 microns. Click apply. I'm going to pop up all the objects here. And then if you pay attention to the bottom right of your screen, this is the highlight objects. If you turn this off, this highlight will be off. You can turn it back on. And you can, now we just created something for GFP, so we can go to GFP, click on secondary, and this is what we just defined for the GFP population, right? So this is absolutely not great, right? Because your GFP is like all over the place. So then you can also threshold it. Just like we did for the DAPI, we can also threshold it with the GFP channel. We're just going to start off with the default options, and I like to smoothen it out a little bit. It's just going to give you finer edges, so it's going to look nicer if you want to show it to someone, and then you just hit apply, and it's going to basically identify those regions for you. Now we see that like some that are missing because our signal was not that great. but we can still use this line profile tool, draw a line here. You can barely see any difference between background and signal, right? The signal is at 4,000, the 25% is at like 925. Let's select something in middle, maybe like 2,000, and just hit apply. Again, this is not a perfect plate, but it makes it so much better already.
That basically tells you that Gen 5 can see things we can't.
Yeah.
When we set it up, so maybe the exposures, gains, and all that.
It's
Where our
very-
eyes look a certain way,
Yeah.
the system is
Exactly.
a little more visually competent than we are.
Exactly. So we never want to overexpose our images. Always good to underexpose and
Yeah.
overexpose, because if
So
it's
there's data at a
overexposed,
certain cap, right?
exactly, the data is gonna max out at some point.
Why don't we just, instead of changing the threshold here, it's the same question as before, probably it's gonna be
Yeah.
the same answer.
Yeah.
Why don't we just change the distance from the primary mass?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if I change my distance to maybe like 10 microns, right? This is only going to limit this distance from the primary mass to the second. Primary is nuclei, secondary is the GFP. But it doesn't really know where the signal is, or how intense the signal is, or how faint the
Okay.
signal is. And this is for the signal intensity. So those are like two different things. The first one is the distance from the primary mass, and the second one is threshold. But if you limit this and then you just don't use the threshold, I see what you're trying to say. You can define it like this. And it's still going to give you pretty good results, right, for the GFP expression, but it's going to miss out on a few things. Yeah. But yeah, for certain experiments, you don't really want to threshold it, and this is actually more effective way of finding
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is great. And you can also decrease it. For some reason you want to look it within the nuclei, you can also reduce it. It's going to make it close to 0, right, because the nuclei is almost that size. So. But yeah, multiple ways, we can perform from here, but, we can use either. Let's just use threshold for now,
Yeah.
since we already set it up, and then set it to 50. All right, everybody good so far with that? Then the third option is the calculated features or the calculated matrix. So what is being displayed on this side is what we are looking at here. So in the calculated matrix, we are seeing the cell count, right? We are seeing the size, the area, the sum area. Probably we don't want all of them. We probably just care about the cell count and maybe the mean intensity of the GFP. So you can just click on that and just get it displayed here. So it's easier for you in the long run for the data analysis and stuff like that. All right. And the last one is the subpopulation. So we set up one population already. Let me show you how else you can set it up. So if you go back to the scatter plot, you can also click on histogram instead of the scatter plot. And if you want to just look at the mean intensity of GFP right now, we can select the mean intensity of GFP. And then we can also get these populations. We can see there are some that has very few, like very relatively lower expression of GFP, and there are some you can see that like a good separation from here to here. Maybe we want to distinguish between these two populations and call it a new pop. Actually, I didn't draw my box correctly. So maybe let's do this again. And I can say like GFP overexpression or something. I'm just gonna randomly put some letters here. And this is my GFP positive cells, and I want to get the cell count for that. Now it also indicates like 10% of my total cells are GFP, overexpression or like high expression of GFP. And it's also going to dictate that here. So we have the total cell count, we have the cell count for the first population of large cells, and we also have a subpopulation for the GFP positive or overexpressing cells. So it's all pretty good. And we then can add this step to the workflow. So now once we add this step to the workflow, now it's again a part of your protocol. So now if you want to repeat this across multiple wells or the whole well plate, you can do that. And how do you do that? And if you're taking notes, write this down, because people often forget this step and then they like wonder like where this step exists. So you can either right click on the thumbnail. So we have taken a lot of images here, but we have only done the analysis on one of the subsets.
Yeah.
So if you can figure out which one you have performed the analysis on, you can look at the image history. We have done the raw image collection as well as the transformed image collection, and it has all the masks on it. So always use that image. Right click on that and then say create experiment from this image. And now it's going to create this experiment. It remembers all the settings we had for the plate type, the indicators for the exposure levels. The focus option was like default autofocus method. And if you were looking for like the offset between the two channels, it already automatically sets that up. So you never remember, I was talking about the autofocus part. We have to autofocus it for each channel, so it's going to remember that and embed that information here. So it's pretty intuitive. And then if you then wanted to apply like Z stacks, or like wanted to do image montages, or if you wanted to apply beacons, so you want to image like 4x4 like grid of I can show that to you later after lunch. But you can do so many different ways imaging from here. And then if you select this at runtime, this basically runs it to the wells that we select. If you select the default option per step, it automatically assumes that you are running the full plate. So if you wanted to define that, you can come here and change the wells here, like this. Or else, I like to use this runtime option because sometimes I make mistakes in plating, and then my A1 cells are at H12 or something. So you can dictate where you're gonna image using the same protocol. Does that make sense? So you can use the same protocol to image like one well and then come back the next day. You can image the second plate without making any changes to the actual protocol. I can show that to you. And then you had a question about the kinetic. So you can also set it up from here. So if you click on the start kinetic, this is the first mode which forces you to keep the plate in for the calcium flux experiment or something you were doing. So you click on start kinetic, and then you can dictate the runtime. So how much total time do you want to put this plate in for? So maybe like 4 hours. Do you want to read it every 10 minutes? So you can set it up like this. So the first one is hours, second one minutes, third one is seconds.
I would want to do it I wanted to do a 30-minute recording for every, and then 2 minutes for every.
30 seconds, sorry?
So, sorry, 2 minutes?
30 minutes, okay, total and 2 minutes, yeah. So you would just do that here then. You click on 30, and then in the interval time you set it up to 2. Sorry, you have 30 seconds, you said. 2 minutes.
Sorry, an image every 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah.
30
Yeah.
minutes of analysis with images every
No,
2 minutes.
I didn't get that right. So yeah, you just set it up to 2 minutes,
Okay.
and that's it. If you have even faster kinetic needs, you can actually do. We're not going to go there today in the training session, but you can reach out to me and I can forward you some documentation for that. You can also do a well mode imaging.
Yeah.
What that does, it's gonna just keep your imaging area limited to one area only. So you can do like all the wells at the same time, like in the same experiment. But it's gonna image simultaneously, like in one well for the entirety of the time. So for example, you want to track like a fast response in 10 minutes. Like everything happens in the first 10 minutes. It's gonna go to this location in the fixed manual height, or it can also autofocus if you want, and it's gonna capture as many images as you want. So you can actually get up to 33 frames per second if you want. So if it's that fast, you can even track that. But if you want, every 2 minutes, then it's also easily.
So I can't switch between wells?
You can.
Oh.
But if you don't use the well mode, then you can. The well mode, what it's going to do, it's going to basically read up this well for like 10 minutes, then go to the next one. Because it just assumes that your response is so fast. But if you just want to do like the general thing that we were talking about, you don't really need the well mode for that. You should be able to accomplish this within the experiment mode if you're just trying to shoot.
Did you want to treat one well at a time, or did you want to treat your whole place well at the same time?
Yeah, every well should have a different treatment.
Right at the same time,
Yeah.
theoretically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, you can also look at the minimum interval time, like how much is it taking for the instrument. So you may not be able to collect the whole well images because as I said, like the whole well, whole plate imaging will still take you like 3.5 minutes, which is one channel. But you can do half of it, or you can do a partial plate. So depending on how much time it takes, you can change those.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's pretty easy to set up.
Okay. And there's tutorials on how to do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna show that to you also in here, but
I'm trying to image individual cells and their mitochondrial depolarization after I add. That's just yeah, it's just fluorescence.
yeah. So it's easily doable for like I would say like 30 wells at least in those 2-minute interval times, and then you can do the rest of the 30 afterwards, and then the rest of them afterwards. Yeah, so you can just set it up like this. Right, so now we have a loop and this was sitting at the outside the loop initially. So you have the loop. It's gonna start the kinetic, end the kinetic. It's not gonna image anything. It's gonna image it after the kinetic ends. So what you have to do is basically just throw this within the loop. So now it's gonna start the kinetic, image it across the loop, and then end the kinetic. So this is very important for you guys to know.
Yeah, I played with this before, and I
Yeah.
think that's what I was having issues with.
Okay. Yeah. So just anything you are trying to do kinetically has to be within the loop.
Okay.
And then if you wanted to set temperature, you can also set up the temperature with
So
the
right now, the logic is saying that you're gonna start the kinetic to image, or for 30 minutes, every 2 minutes, and it's gonna image those channels at those wells
Yeah.
and do it for that time period.
Yeah, so this is the loop until it ends after 30 minutes, yeah. And then if you...
So will it just do it as fast as possible, basically?
Yeah, so it's gonna do it as fast as possible, and for example, it's not able to accomplish that in 2 minutes, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to try to match the number of cycles. So, we define 15, 16 cycles because it runs time point 0, and then time point 2, 4, and so on up to 30. So you have 16 rate steps. Until those 16 rate steps have been met, it's going to still continue, even if it exceeds 30 minutes.
Okay, so will it tell you the total read time at the end, just so you kind of know?
Total read time, you can basically get that from the plate information. It will give you like experiment start time and end time, and then you can gauge from that.
That would be
Or you
fun
can-
for the microglia too. Like do the kinetics and put the inflammatory stimulus and then see how they evolve over time.
If you want to do depolarization stuff, yeah. Check that out.
Yeah, so that's a great option, and the video I showed you guys, it's gonna talk a little bit more about the kinetics. I just deleted that for now.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
other option I was talking about is the discontinuous. So you probably don't need that, but the other folks might benefit from that. And that is at the bottom of this. If you just click on options, there is this option of discontinuous kinetic. And pay attention here, this is actually date and then days and hours and minutes instead of hours, minutes, and seconds. So it assumes that this is a multi-day experiment. So now you can pop it like 14-day experiment for my cell proliferation. I want to read it like once a day or like twice a day or something. You can just set up like 12-hour time points, and then there are going to be 29 read steps. And then you just click OK, and then you just start your experiment, take the plate out, and pop it in whenever you want. It doesn't need to be exactly at 12 hours. We're gonna use the system date and time to figure out.
Oh, so we don't need to keep the plane inside
Yeah.
for 14 days.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why this mode is designed, so you can actually take the plate away from the instrument and open it up for your colleagues because they're gonna need
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's fine.
We have a system called a biothaw that can actually move your plate into a incubator. through
Take
automation
it in.
support.
We have an automated incubator.
If that's the route you guys go, but the system itself, I wouldn't treat it for 14 days.
Yep. Any questions?
So for the kinetic,
Yes.
I can pause it. I can set up a line item where I can pause it, open it up, and then add
Yeah.
whatever I want. Okay. And it'll continue like recording after closing the citation.
So you want to collect like a baseline image,
Yeah.
and then you want to add your reagents and then read after that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is also a mode which basically you do this. So you this is your baseline right here, and then you set up a read step afterwards. So you then start a kinetic and then collect. You right click on this, copy this, paste it here. So what this is going to do, it's going to collect a baseline, and then there's also this loop that's going to happen after the reagent addition, and before that you can also add a plate in, plate out function. Okay. So this is going to actually pop out the plate for you, and then you can actually just name it, reagent. So now you can have the plate go out for you. You just add up whatever you want, and just there is an OK button. You just click on OK, and that's going to take in the plate and then perform the rest of the steps.
Okay. Okay, that's
So
what
it's
I need.
very straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm gonna just email me once once you get time, so I can share some app notes with you and discuss everything about that. Yeah. So I'm gonna again just delete the rest of the information for now. Any other questions before we start up like a very small brief? No? Okay. So I'm gonna click OK, and then we'll just start this experiment. And let's just select maybe this A12 for now, and click OK. Is it okay if we save it here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just create a folder. So training file 16, 24. And as you start an experiment, it doesn't matter if the plate is inside or not, so it's going to always take out the plate carrier, and then you click OK. Now you can bring in your plate. And then
So on the place, it's been here with 5 cells outside of the QA setting, which say,
how long will it be good for? A day.
okay, that's not bad.
And then you can always replenish the media, or you can just, I mean, as long as it's connected to the gas control, you can shoot for like 3 days. I've done like that was for 3 days. What you do is, you just fill out the outside wells with water. Just leave it there. So that's going to keep it open.
And there's heating in there to keep it warm, right?
And then you can hook it up with smoke as well as no cold gases.
So where's that pop with the Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's it.
Okay.
There are 2 versions of Diamond, one of them doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. And I'm gonna have
Sorry.
It's it's almost done already. I'm gonna have you take control now from this point onwards. So let's just double check these images and then move on to your play. So to visualize any of these images, you just double click on it, and it's going to show you those images. Remember, these are just the raw images, not the background subtracted images. If you wanted to use those, you can click on the top portion. Left to that, DAPI plus GFP like this.
Oh,
And then TSF stands for transform. Those are the processed images, and you can see it's doing a pretty good job, segmenting the nuclei. You can see this is the background, so you can now go to the secondary mask, GFP.
oh, so you're saying
Click on DAPI and then click on GFP
I see.
and click on secondary. And now we are calculating the secondary mask, including this artifact, because it's kind of part of that artifact. But you can see the segmentation, working quite nicely. It's gonna, be off in some cases, but for the most part,
It's yours?
No.
This is just what we connect.
Okay, sorry.
So yeah, you can visualize the images like this. So if you go to select well, and maybe go to like D3 for example, B3 is fine. And you can see the segmentation, you can see all the statistics, and in case you wanted to change up some conditions, right? I was telling you guys about that. You go to analyze, and then there are already pre-existing steps. So whatever you want to change in, just go there. And you can also add more images to this. So you can click on add image set, and maybe I'm just going to type in C3 for now. And now you can review multiple images. So you can have your positive control, negative control here, and then change up the conditions accordingly. And then apply changes once you're done with that. And that's going to basically apply to the whole image set. And then you can close this by clicking on close. And if you click on the data, you can see all the features that we had extracted. So you can see the cell count, the row count. It also heat maps it for you. So it's pretty nice.
Oh, the different channels, I see.
Yeah, and then we set up some, big cell population and GFP Y expression. So we have all that. And then just one last thing before we move on is you can also set up new analysis steps like just what you were doing. So you can always add to it if you want to add more steps. And if you just close this out for now.
Where was the panel right here before?
Yeah, so if you go to the transformed image,
Oh, I see.
it will show that to you. It also shows you the cellular analysis, and if you click on that, we also set up the GFP, so it also has that.
Is there?
What's the round stuff? Bottom right.
I don't know. It's just some third content, I don't know.
Bubble looks like or something?
Could be probably, yeah.
So is there a way to show that histogram here like you did before?
So there is, but it's not here. So you can close this. So when you set up the histogram, we have to add the step like at that moment. So when it's open, we have to add that step, and it will populate here. So if you click on data, it will have like one of the histograms. Yeah, click on the picture
Oh,
histogram
I
size,
see.
and this is just like one pre-created
Oh,
one.
okay, got
But
it.
that's gonna pop up here in that section. if
Got
you
it.
click that. And then what else? So exporting the data. So if you wanted to export this, this is gonna be okay for like a couple of minutes. Or
Yeah, that should just throw them in the drawer.
yeah. So sorry about that.
Yeah,
So
you're
if you want to export this, you can click on this step. This is to create an export. So this is called a report export builder. You can build as many reports as you would like. So if you want to build a whole image export, like all the images being exported, you can click on picture export. But for now, we just want Excel export, like simple export with an MS Excel. So click on that, and you guys have Excel on this computer. Or
Yeah.
no? Okay. Hit next. Just gonna hit next one time. And then the regroup tab is something I don't really like because it's gonna put all the information in like one cell of Excel. So imagine like one cell having all the information. It's not good. So just uncheck that and click OK. And that's now done. So now we have created an export, but we have not executed the export yet.
Okay.
So you can close this out, and this is the execution step. Looks exactly the same as you can see. Now I can
This
click on
one?
it. Yep. And now it has the Excel export. It has all the metadata of acquisition, analysis, as well as the results we generated in a heat map fashion. It's
So-
pretty good.
So something I do
Yeah.
is I want to get the individual cellular data per cell.
Per cell, yeah. we
Is there a
can-
way to do that easily? Because I know you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I can show that.
Okay, yeah.
So let's create another report for that. So create a new report using that tab. New export to Excel. And instead of automatic, we have to customize them. So we have to click on custom
Okay.
and then hit next. And then edit template. So here you can actually add all the features that we were seeing. Like you can just right click anywhere and then everything will pop up here.
Mhm.
But what you are interested in like is the cell level information.
Mhm.
It's going to be table, object level data, and then objects, whatever information that we have generated per object is going to populate here. Then you click on the well, and then we can indicate like which wells do you want to add. Let's just add all for now,
Mhm.
and then click on add. And that's going to add up all the wells that we have,
Mhm.
and then we'll click OK. And it's saying it's going to take up a lot of time, which we know because there's a lot of information. That's fine, click OK. And then everything will pop up here. So you can close this now.
This thing?
Yeah, you can close the Excel.
So just really quick though, like,
Yeah.
so is it gonna put, or how can I phrase this? Say I have like 6 groups across a plate, but I want each sheet to be its own group, i.e. its own treatment group. Would I just have to do that multiple times for
You
the
can
appropriate
create more
range?
sheets
Yeah.
and we'll just add different
Okay, yeah.
wells there. And you can also group them by treatment. So there is like a well plate layout function. You can also customize different
Oh,
groups
yeah.
from there. So it's much easier that way.
Okay, but yeah, that works too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And
easy.
once that's set up, then you go back to Gen 5. The other one, yeah. And we have created that, so we just click OK and close this. And now when you execute this, this button, and the second one is what we want, and click OK. Click OK. I don't know what's happening. Go back to Excel. I think that was open somewhere, right?
Yeah, maybe another, the other instance is messing
okay.
with it.
Maybe close everything else. Yeah. And if that's not resolved, then I'll send you some instructions to resolve that. I know we are experiencing some issues in it, so yeah, I'll share a document which you can follow.
Okay.
Like there are some features that are not extractable right now because of this like software update, but I mean there is a resolution. So I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Alright, perfect. So let's stop this recording and then we'll create a new one for your plate. Any questions about this one before we move on? Alright. So yeah, you go to this and stop recording.